Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad you decided to tune in. We have a very, very, very special guest. As you see on your screen, right-handed pitcher and the Dodgers organization, Ben Casparius joins Dodgers Daily. So, Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, light moment. I'm an Oklahoma boy, so I love nicknames of high schools. And when I talked to Ryan Ward, he went to Millbury. He was a Wooly. I thought that was really cool. You went to Staples, and their mascot is a wrecker. So, First of all, what the heck is a wrecker? And talk about that whole experience.
Yeah, so I think a wrecker is actually just, hard hat on, like more of like a construction guy. So a little bit interesting, but the mascot was cool. And I had nothing but love for Staples High School. It was a great 4 years. And we went to the state championship my sophomore year. We lost. And then we won it my senior year. So it was kind of the icing on the cake for a pretty awesome 4 years.
Maybe a little bit of a shared experience. 2019, Oklahoma State, The field was too wet. Oklahoma State, they hosted a regional. UConn was in it. If you remember Anthony Prado on that team.
Of course,
that group was awesome. I got to see every game they played. They were awesome to watch. So talk about that 2019 team, and then we'll get into how you went to North Carolina, your high school career in a minute. But I want you to talk about that 19 team and how that drew you back.
Yeah, no, definitely. So obviously I was finishing up at UNC at the time before I transferred in 2020. But that was a great team. Obviously great leaders, and then a lot of those guys went on to play pro ball. But just a really good group of chemistry with Coach Penders, Josh McDonald, and Coach Horgan and Coach Dez. But just a bunch of guys that wanted to win. I think they won close to 50 games that year as well, almost like last year. But they went to a super regional. Obviously, it's just saying something. It's a top 16 team in the country right there, and their success that year was a really big reason why I decided to transfer back home.
That was an amazing team. And I remember my wife is a witness, I actually went down, and the Fedco brothers and then Anthony Prado, I made it a point to go down and tell them how much I enjoyed watching them play, although they were the opponent. They were that fun to watch. So, okay, let's back up. You set a record for all-time hits in Connecticut. You were a coach of the association, All-State. You won a state championship in 2017. Just a ridiculous career there at Staples. You mentioned it a minute ago, but let's dive a little bit deeper into your awesome high school career there.
Yeah, no, so up until about I was 21, I would say I was a hitter first. I took pride in that. I loved it. I think I got lucky with having a good arm and being able to transfer onto the mounds come my redshirt junior season. But one of those things where I think it came to me pretty quickly. The idea of hitting, I thought I always had a pretty good approach, and that's kind of what propelled me into being able to hit in the ACC in college, and then ultimately having to make a decision. But in high school, it was pretty awesome. And it would have been interesting to see if I was still a hitter in pro ball, what could have happened, but I have no regrets at all. It was pretty special though.
You ever beg them to let you take BP and show them what you still got?
Once in a blue moon. I'll be at shortstop during most pre-games taking ground balls, but no, I haven't swung in a while. So
still got some pop? Can you get some home runs?
I think so, yeah. I went to the simulator a few days ago where I was working with the TrackMan and everything. I was hitting them pretty well. So I know I got to get out on the field one of these days.
Okay, fantastic. As a matter of fact, your senior year, you hit .490, 11 home runs, a 1.90 ERA, and then you went to the University of North Carolina, which is fairly close by, but again, North Carolina, one of the best college baseball programs in all the United States. Obvious reasons there why you would choose there. You got to play with Michael Bush for your first 2 years there. You had a fantastic both pitching and offensive year, your first year there in North Carolina. So take us through your 2 years there. Yeah,
no, obviously North Carolina being a really prestigious school. I wanted to go there since I was a little boy. And obviously selfishly enough too, I thought I had enough talent to, get out of the Northeast and go play in the South in a little bit of more warm weather climate. And it's a great place to play baseball. And like you said, I got to play alongside Michael. He's one of those guys where he makes baseball look significantly easier than it should be. And that's not saying that he doesn't work really hard, because he does. And not only a great teammate, but a really, really good person. He can hit, and he's versatile on the field. So that was a fun 2 years with him. I learned a lot from him. We were in the same lineup together actually too, as when I was still a hitter, and he was one of the guys I really learned a lot from. So it was a great time.
Okay, so you had the great offensive production there at North Carolina. Obviously, we talked about your .490 average your senior year in high school. So, the offensive game seemed to be rolling. Why did we choose to be pitcher only?
Yeah, so I think, there was a bunch of factors that went into it. So my freshman year, at the end of the year, just like a little tidbit, I broke my foot against Duke on, I think, May 11th it was. And I needed surgery on my fifth metatarsal in my left foot.
Oh.
I actually withheld that surgery in the hopes we'd make it to Omaha. And I think the recovery was about 12 weeks without surgery, and then about 6 months with. So I was like, you know what? I'm probably not going to play summer ball this year. I already played a good amount this year, so we'll stick it out. We ended up making it to Omaha, and I started in all 3 of those games. I obviously had surgery, I think it was 2 days after we got home and were eliminated, but it was a good choice for me to, withhold that and be able to experience all of that. But it definitely took a little bit of a turn going into the fall of the next year. I was still a little bit slow with the recovery. I ended up getting another stem cell injection. I think it was in December, and I started off that year pretty slowly in the box. I feel like it was the first time ever in my life where I actually started off kind of slow. I wasn't hitting all that well. I think I was 7 for my first 40 at bats, which was tough. And then honestly, I wasn't even pitching that great, honestly, that year as well. So I think the turn kind of changed when I got to UConn. I was really interested in being a starting pitcher when I got there. It was one of the reasons I went there, because I knew that I was going to at least get an opportunity. I didn't know if I would make it into the weekend rotation, but I knew I was going to get an opportunity to be a starter. And, I think everything kind of propelled itself. It was my first year at UConn. In the fall, we had a pro workout. I think 29 out of the 30 teams had more interest in me as a pitcher.
Okay.
And that's where I think it kind of, I got the idea like, hey, I barely work on this at all. I have a good arm. I shouldn't say barely, but I put much more of my time and effort into hitting, probably 90% hitting and 10% pitching.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, if I'm still getting a lot of interest from teams like this and I'm not really even working on it, then I think there's a lot of upside there. And I still had pretty good feel for a slider and a changeup at that point too. So I was pretty confident with knowing like, hey, I'm definitely gonna put all my eggs in that basket and see how it goes. And I honestly still was hitting up until 2021 in the fall, and then I had a really important conversation. It was one of the like biggest factors towards that decision. But my pitching coach was like, hey man, like you're a senior or a redshirt junior, I should say. He was like, I don't want to see you get hurt hitting. I know it's going to be a lot of fun, but he's like, if you come around first base and you twist your ankle and you can't make 3 or 4 starts, that might be a deal breaker for you. He was like, that's just he didn't push me or say like, do this or do that, but he made a really good point. And I was already on track to, I want to say get drafted, and had already started talking to teams about pitching, and I didn't want to put any more risk into possibly getting hurt in that regard. So I think that's where everything kind of took a turn. Okay.
So very cool experience. It seems like to me, I'm a big college baseball fan, and you got your first win and your first save both at North Carolina against the biggest rival, North Carolina State. Take us through that experience.
That was pretty cool. It was actually kind of a crazy stat, but I think it was the first time we had ever swept NC State at their place in the history of the ACC. So pretty interesting weekend there. I think we were 8 at the time and they were 4. So it was a couple of big dogs going at it the whole weekend. And I remember I got the save. I got the win on Friday night. I think I came in like the 7th inning. I actually had an RBI that game too, like a go-ahead RBI, I remember, which is pretty cool. So it was an action-packed weekend. But I remember Sunday, I think it was a 1.2 inning save. I think I was throwing 83 miles an hour. My arm was shot. That was the first time. That was the first time I could remember in a long time coming in, back-to-back outings in a weekend. Yeah. And obviously being a professional pitcher now, like everybody's recovery routines are so good. I don't think it would be an issue at this point. But back then, when I wasn't really pitching, I think I threw a total of maybe 12 innings that year. So it was pretty rare if I was going in to pitch. So my arm definitely wasn't ready for that, but it was, I got the job done. I got a pop up to second base to end that game. So it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience though. And it was the first time I had played at NC State, and it's a tough place to play. So it was fun.
No doubt about it. Those college moments like that are, you just can't find them anywhere else. They're so fun. Okay, so we go back to UConn in 2020. You apply for a hardship waiver. I don't know if it's called a hardship, but a waiver to play immediately at UConn. That gets denied, so that's not good. And then the 2020 season gets canceled. So kind of from the outside looking in, it looks like, of course, it's not good that nobody got to play, but it was kind of lucky for you in the sense that you weren't going to get to play 2020 anyways, and then nobody got to play. So do you kind of view that as being fortunate?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, it's an interesting case scenario where you are fortunate, but it gave me leverage. It gave me a chance to not only be a senior, but to be a redshirt junior. And don't get me wrong, it would have been great to go into the draft as a 21-year-old coming off of a full season, but to be able to have 2 extra years of eligibility and leverage as a 22-year-old after having some success was huge. So I missed 13 games that year. And I think the biggest, most pivotal point in my career, I tell everybody this, was that COVID shutdown. So from the months of, I would say, March to July, my only job was, take a couple classes online, which we were all doing, and then, go to the gym. And that's where I started tailoring my workouts towards being a pitcher. Right. I had a lot of support. I was doing Zoom calls. I was on the phone with my coaches, teammates, learning new grips or pitches and everything. But that's where I think a lot of people either made themselves or broke themselves in that period of time, just with the shutdown and, the lack of resources. But, it became an obsession, especially in a short amount of time, to really I'm hey, I'm a pitcher now. This is what I do. And that's where I made some major strides. And it was really good timing going into summer ball. I played for the New Britain Bees that summer. It was one of the only leagues that was actually going on. So I made a few starts there, and then it propelled me into the fall of my redshirt junior year, which ultimately was my last year.
Yeah, and then after that 2020 season, you had a free agency offer that you turned down there. Okay, so take us through, why did you choose not to go pro there, and why did you come back for eventually your last year at UConn?
Yeah, I was going back and forth for a couple of days with my family and my agent, because it was one of those instances where I knew I was good enough to get to that point to play professional baseball. I knew that my stuff was good enough. I was in a really good spot. I was healthy. I just thought, I came to this university to play. Yeah, right. I still obviously have leverage with COVID. That was the biggest reason that I don't think I signed, was because I wanted to play for Coach Penders and his staff so badly. Again, even if I had a bad year and I ended up signing as a free agent or I didn't sign, I don't think I would have regretted it at all. I was so focused on, playing for UConn, playing a full college season as a pitcher, going through the year, and I don't regret it at all. Obviously, it was a good bargain for me and my family, and it was a good decision to go back to school in terms of landing with the Dodgers and obviously going in the 5th round rather than being an unsigned free agent. Right. But though that year was a magical year with the UConn baseball team. It was something really special. I know we didn't get out of our regional, but it was, it was awesome. I have friends for life. I'm still very close with the pitching coach Josh McDonald and Coach Penders, Coach Horrigan, and it was a real family there, and I had so much fun. And I'm glad it happened that way. Yeah, just watching that 2019 team, and I saw a little bit of your team play. Also, just the grit, the toughness, the tough outs offensively, and then the pitchers. They teach you to attack. It's like that they don't give you anything. Sure. Everything's always in the strike zone with multiple pitches, and it's just, you have to beat UConn. UConn does not beat itself. So, I bet, whenever I watch you pitch, I just think, I'll bet your inter squad scrimmages there at UConn were so competitive. I'll bet they were fun. They were. We used to have, before our big facility was built, which I was fortunate enough to get the first year in it. We had a little barn with 2 cages, and we were going live at 6 or 7 in the morning, on the weekends. It got so competitive. It was so much fun. That was before we even had TrackMan built too. So like guys were hitting line drives off the side of the cage, going like, "That's a double. That's double." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's foul." But it was really competitive. I think that's kind of the energy you need to create, success. And obviously everybody's in on the same goal, so there was no bad blood between teammates or anything like that. But it was Coach Penders and the staff create a very, very competitive environment. And I think that's why they have success every single year.
Another cool experience for you in 2021, your last year there at UConn. You got to pitch at Texas Tech. That's cool because Dan Lyle Field in Lubbock is one of the best places to play college baseball. Tech has one of the best programs. But the coolest part of that is on the Texas Tech team was one of your future teammates, your teammate from last year at Great Lakes, Ryan Sublette, and you had a really good game. You went 5 innings. You had 8 strikeouts. So do you and Sublette, do you guys sit around and tell stories about that weekend?
Yeah, no, we talk about it every once in a while. I wish I knew him when we were playing there, knowing like the type of guy he is. It would have been a lot of fun going back and forth with him. But no, again, I tell everybody that's probably between them, State, East Carolina. That's a tough place to pitch.
Oh,
and there's a reason they went. I think they went. I want to say 30-2 at home that year. When they play at home, they win. So it was a lot of fun. We talk about it all the time. And then I ended up, I think Tech made it to the World Series that year. They were playing in the Super Regional. So I saw Ryan pitch a couple games on TV when I was back at home and was like, "Hey, this guy's pretty good." And then we ended up being teammates. So we were roommates towards the back end of the season last year too. So he's an awesome guy to be around. I'm happy he's in the organization. So
very cool. So you got to go back home to UConn. You got to have the great 2021. You got to get drafted in the 5th round. So, I mean, just everything just worked out great. And so take us through draft day, what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was special. It was pretty quiet too. It was me, my family, and then one of my really, really close friends, my girlfriend. And it was a pretty surreal day. I remember it honestly like it was 5 hours ago. Just the first, I knew I wasn't going in the first round. So the first day was kind of out of the equation, but it was fun to just spectate and see, guys I've played with, upcoming high school talent go. But I knew I had a very, very good feeling I was going on the second day. And those first 2 hours were they something with the phone calls coming in. I was either hearing from my agent or hearing from a scout from a team. So it was that couple hours was a long couple of hours, but I got the call from my agent saying the Dodgers want to take you at pick 162. This is the dollar amount. What do you want to do? And I was like, absolutely. And it happened, I think, in the next 30 seconds. So, it went from being pretty stressful to like, wow, I'm a professional baseball player. This is pretty cool, especially with, the Dodgers, the best organization in baseball. So, I mean, it was an awesome day. I got to share some time with my friends and my family too. And, some of the weight came off of my back from, the transfer and then switching, primary positions. And then it kind of all came together. And it was, I got to like, just sit down with myself and be like, okay, you did it. Like we're on to the next step. Mm-hmm. And then, 5 days later, I'm in Glendale, Arizona, just going through minicamp. So it was a pretty crazy month.
Yeah. To get into your position, there's a lot of decisions you have to make. Hey, what college do you go to? Then you had to choose, hey, do I want to be a position player or a pitcher? Going back to UConn, then you had to choose, hey, do I want to sign an undrafted free agent contract? So you had a bunch of decisions to make, man, and you made all the right decisions, didn't you? I mean, you got to be proud of that, don't you?
No, definitely. I think it all kind of happens for a reason too. And there's no doubt that if I signed as a free agent, I don't think that I was nervous about the success that I would have had, and I hopefully would have had success. But I think, I wanted that extra year in college to really go through a season. I was healthy at that point. I felt really good about what I've done and what I've put together. And at the end of the day, you got to just bet on yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did in a lot of cases. And then, you make a decision, you got to go with that decision where I was transferring from being a position player to a pitcher. And I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And like I said, that COVID time period, that's where, I was in the gym every single day. I was doing new plyo work. I was fixing my arm path. I was there's an endless amount of things that I was working on, but it was something that really made the difference. And it propelled me to even right now where I am and having that strong, like, fundamental base that I had created 2.5 years ago until now. So I'm very thankful for that.
And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you know, you still get that college experience, don't you? I mean, you can't get that back, can you? I mean, that's just something that's magical.
It is, and I got to do it at 2 different places too. So I got the southern side of it, and then the most northeast side of it too. And I left this out too, but coming back to UConn, there were so many guys in the team that I had already had a great relationship with that, I mean, it couldn't have been a better situation to come in as a transfer. Just with the relationships I had with those players and, you know, the common goals that they had, it was something special.
Okay, interesting situation for you. Last January, you get flown out to Dodger Stadium. You get invited to this workout to be had at Dodger Stadium. And so you get there, everything's great. And then you get to the gate to get in. And to get in, you have to take a COVID test. So they send you off to take your COVID test. And then lo and behold, you find out that you tested positive and actually had to quarantine for your time there. So take us through the range of emotions of what that experience was like, you know, going from the excitement of having a workout at Dodger Stadium, going out to LA and getting that experience, to then realizing that you're not going to get to have that workout and instead you're going to have to end up being quarantined in a hotel somewhere after you tested positive for COVID. So take us through that situation and the range of emotions.
We got right to the stadium. I walked in the back, the players' entrance. So I came in through the left field, top of the left field line right there. I walked down one hallway into a room, took my test, sat right outside that room, and 25 minutes later it was, hey, you tested positive. And I was like, oh man, here we go. And it was that time of the year where everybody was starting to get positive again. I ended up staying in the hotel, I think, from the 5th to the 16th. So I was there for 11 days. I was actually working out in my hotel room. I was throwing plyos I put the bed mattress up and was just ripping plyos into the bed. I remember sending video to a couple of coordinators, like, hey, like, how does this look? I'm still in my hotel room, but I made do with it. It wasn't, you know, it's not the worst place to be quarantined in the world in LA.
Yeah, right.
But it stinks that it didn't happen. But I think the camp ended up actually not happening the following weeks, just with how many people were getting sick. And so I ended up going right from, I was already so acclimated on the West Coast time that I actually just went straight to Arizona from there. And that was a very good decision. So just to get back, I lost about 10 days of being in the weight room and being out on the field throwing. So I definitely needed a couple of extra weeks to just like feel solid again going forward. So it was good that I was able to just pop over to Arizona and kind of, you know, get the ball rolling there.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, let's talk about your stuff. Let's talk about the good stuff. 93. Yeah. I've got you at a 93, 95 four-seam, good right at the top of the zone.
Yeah.
I got you with a changeup and a slider. And then, I don't know, I'm taking a stab at this one. It looked like you had maybe a cutter at maybe 87, 88. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. So the cutter, we talk about this all the time, but there's a cutter that I'm throwing right now where the idea is, you know, to keep the vert a little bit higher against lefties. So I would say those are more in like the low 90s range. And then there's another cutter variation that's actually profiling like a hard slider that's in that 87 to 89 range.
Yeah, that's the one that I saw. Yeah.
More to righties, because if you really profile my slider, it's in that 81 to 85 mile an hour range. But it's, you know, if you flip them around, instead of it being here, if you flip it like this, it's pretty much a sideways curveball. So it was something where the cutter was brand new in spring training. I had started working with it in around December in catch play. I really liked it because obviously I'm not throwing 100. I'm throwing, you know, low to mid 90s, which I'm very happy about. I have nothing against, you know, where my velo is at. Right. But the cutter was just another opportunity in zone to miss some barrel, you know, steal some strikes and counts like 1-0, 2-0. And then the slider is something that I rely really heavily on. Obviously, you know, I don't mind that as much, but I think this coming year, I know we were going to talk a little bit strategy, this and that, but I think I got to trust my fastball a little bit more, especially throwing it up in the zone. I got a little bit tentative with that at times this year, and I think it just comes down to trusting that. And then the changeup is just all about consistency, because I feel like when I had that, things were going really well, and then once that kind of disappears and it starts feeling a little funky in your hand, it's a little bit easier to sit on one pitch or the other. So
the changeup, is that real feel heavy for you? I know I hear that quite a bit.
It is, for sure. I think the changeup throw itself feels a little bit, or at least this year felt a little bit different than it did, throwing my fastball, slider, and cutter. And that's what I've been just hunkering down with this off season, is just, feeling it consistently in catch play, like, starting it at a shoulder, ending at a hip, and just doing that over and over and over. And that's, I think the consistency of that and being able to go in zone, out of zone with it more consistently is going to be huge for me this year.
You couldn't be in a better organization to learn the changeup, because the Dodgers, man, they are the best, aren't they?
That is for sure. There's no arguing with that.
Yeah. Okay. So really great message. You have always been in the spotlight. You won a state championship. You're also in another state championship game. You went to North Carolina. You got early playing time. You got to be on some great teams there at North Carolina. You had a great career at a program in UConn that was making regionals and then super regionals, and now you're with the Dodgers. So you've always been in these big moments. You're the guy that has always embraced those big moments. So for those young kids out there that are in those big moments, maybe they're nervous or they're not quite as confident as they should be. How have you learned how to handle those moments so well?
It's going to sound cliche, but just breathe and take it in. I remember my first at bat in Omaha. I was nervous. I hadn't picked up I think I had one practice on that Thursday before we played on Saturday. It was the first time I was able to honestly walk, just because I was dealing with a broken foot. I was on crutches and in a boot, and then miraculously I was like, let's give this thing a shot. I'm having surgery anyways. I got into the batter's box in the first inning, and I looked out into the crowd, and I was just like, just breathe. Everything's all good. Like, you're playing the best sport in the world, and this is supposed to be fun. And I remember, honestly, I have to rewatch the game a lot because I blacked out. I couldn't tell you after the game, what happened, this and that. But I think just being present, I know people say it a lot, and it is hard to, either dwelling on the past, or you're so worried about what's going on ahead of you and what's to come next. But you got to do damage in the moment. And, by doing that and staying up where your feet are, it's going to allow you to put everything, your mind, your energy, your focus into that task at hand. And that's the consistency factor of, a drop in the bucket every day for a year, and you've got a full bucket. And that's the name of the game, especially with baseball. So I would say just breathe and be where you are. So.
Awesome message. Hey, and one last thing, right before you got moved up to Great Lakes, you were on just absolute terror at ranch. I mean, you were just pitching unbelievable. Kind of take me through that experience when you got that phone call, what that was like, knowing that you were getting promoted, for the first time, moving at least from low A to high A. That had to have been a cool experience, didn't it?
It was. And I didn't know after the game, but I did know when Duran called me into the office. It was like, hey, let's go over a few things.
During a linger.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I think this might be the time, because I haven't pitched in a couple of days. So I think this might be it. But it was really special. And I created some pretty unbelievable relationships the time I was there. I think I was in Rancho for about 6 weeks. Yeah. And it was that'll always be really special to me, because it was the first time I went out for pro ball. And not that the summer before was, but I was only there for about 7 days just to get a couple of appearances under my belt. But it was just one of those things. Like, it was pretty. I was like happy. I was obviously thrilled I was being promoted, but it was one of those things too where I was like, man, I'm gonna miss these guys. Like, this is a family. This is really fun stuff. It was. Obviously California, which is beautiful. You can't really beat that weather, especially in the summer. But it was really exciting. And obviously, hearing it from Coach Shoemaker also, that was something too, where, playing for him and putting the jersey on for him and seeing how much he puts into the organization for how long he's been doing it. It's pretty special. So that was a really cool experience.
Shu's pretty special, isn't he?
He is. I learned a lot from him. It's pretty rare if you see that man without a uniform on. It doesn't matter if it's 11 p.m. or if it's 5 a.m. And I think it's something that everybody can learn from him. Everybody can be inspired by him, and that's why I think too. I showed up to the ballpark and I was like, man, this guy is ready to go. Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't be ready to go. And I think he sets a really good example for everybody. And he's got a great sense of humor. He makes it fun. So it was an awesome experience.
Well, Ben, I thank you so much. When I reached out, I'm just so glad that you decided to answer my message and come on to Dodgers Daily. I had so much fun following you this last year, and then also in college. Your stuff is just absolutely big time. If you have not checked out Ben Casparius, you can go to all sorts of social medias. You'll be very impressed. And so I was so excited to talk to you. This has been so much fun for me. So Ben, thank you so much for joining Dodgers Daily.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.